Morning, everyone. It's Thursday, February the 15th, 2024. I'm thrilled to welcome you all to today's webinar on farm diversification and the journey of establishing self-catering business alongside farming activities. My name is Barry Caslin, and I'll be your host for today's discussion. Today, we have the privilege of hearing from two incredible entrepreneurs who have successfully integrated farming, self-catering accommodation. Joining us are Niamh Byrne, the owner of Abhainn Ri Farm in County Wicklow, and Tomás O'Keeffe, owner of Suir Valley Cottage in Newcastle near Clonmel in County Tipperary. Good morning to you both. How are you, Niamh?
Morning, very well, thank you. Morning.
Good morning, Tomás.
Morning, Barry.
Great to have you here. So, what we're going to do this morning is that both our panelists are going to give a short presentation about their business and what they've done. We're going to have an opportunity for you, the viewers, to put in your questions in the Q&A section there. So just starting off with Niamh. Niamh is going to give a presentation first. So Niamh, if you want to start sharing your screen there, you can, before we go to Tomás. So Niamh's passion for both farming and hospitality has driven the success of Abhainn Ri on a picturesque farm nestled in the heart of Blessington in County Wicklow. Her dedication to providing guests with an authentic and rural experience has made Abhainn Ri a sought-after destination for holidaymakers seeking tranquility and a connection with nature. So Niamh, we'll take your presentation there, and then we'll go to Tomás. Thanks, Niamh.
Okay. Hello. Good morning, everybody. I'm delighted to be asked to present here to you all today. Hope my information will be helpful to anybody starting out. We've been in business now probably nearly 23 years at this stage. We started off with 4 self-catering units, and over time we progressed to farm trails, a bed and breakfast from the old farmhouse, and currently we're developing trails with the National Wildlife and Partnership there. We put in ponds and that. So I'm going to just tell you about what we've done and the sequence, and maybe help you see the pros, the cons, and so on to do with that. So we always say freedom to explore from hilltop to lakeshore, because the farm is located in the Wicklow Mountains. It's a 100-acre farm. It runs from the top of the hill right down to the trees at the lakeshore on the bottom left picture there. So originally we had lots of Angus beef, and we had Jacob sheep and so on. So I'll show you, try to explain to you how we developed it and changed what we were doing over the time. Okay, so that's my plan. Hopefully I'll get it done in the 10-15 minutes for you. So basically we started with the self-catering units. Now we have 4 of them. They're located directly beside the old farmhouse. They have stunning views overlooking the lakes. They sleep 6 people in a 3-bedroom semi-detached cottage, and there are two blocks. We had to build them like that to accommodate an area of outstanding beauty. So we were restricted on not individually separating them, but they are semi-detached, so they look like 2 blocks. So we've recently renovated them again to bring them up to date. So we put in new furniture and so on. So you're constantly going to do that. So it's well worth it, because you will get return on guests and all of that. So it'll work well for you if you keep them up to date. We also have a bed and breakfast, which is the old farmhouse. It's about 180 years old. It's located directly beside the cottages, and it too looks over the lake. So it's a real selling factor. Always decide on your location, if it's a lovely farm with walkways or it's something unique to offer. Now we find the guests love to explore and look at the farm, so it is a selling point. The old farmhouse had lovely features, and we adapted those using the stone walls, and we left in the cranes and so on. So making what you have very unique is a great selling point. If you have something that is unique to try and sell that, it could be stories on the old farm, and ours is 5th going into 6th generation with our kids, so there's lots of old stories to tell, and the guests love that. So the old farmhouse is a real plus when we developed it. But I'll go into how we did it now, just to show you the timelines over the 20 years that we did. And we didn't do it all together. It's a work in progress. It's constantly improving what you do. So we've done it over years. Our latest thing that we're working on now is our farm trails. We've put in wild meadows. We've put in a lovely pond just last summer, the wildlife and parks. We're getting some grant aid, although very, very slow to arrive. We spent the money, but no grant has arrived. As farmers will know, it's a tricky one to get the money. So that's a downside to it. But we have loads of ponies and horses and donkeys and hens on the farm, and the guests love to go visit them. So that's a plus. Now the farm trails is a big selling point now. It's a huge driver to the European tourist who would like to explore. So that's a real selling point that we have on the farm. Now, just to give a quick timeline on how we did it, over the course of 3 years, it's probably 25 years at this stage now with the planning, we have the farmhouse. Myself and my husband developed it. We got the idea maybe 6 years ago on, God, how could we make extra income from the farm? I was working off site and he was working on the farm at the time. So we both wanted to be on site with our family. We didn't want to be going outside. He worked part-time as well. So farm is very difficult, as you all know, to make a good living unless you have a constant income. As you know, if you sell all your cattle and sheep at one end of the year, you only have money at that end. We were looking for something that would give us money throughout the year to actually live as a family on the farm. So we started the development and diversified into the cottages in 2002. So we're a good deal at it now with the 4 self-catering built on the farmland with the lovely views. We developed some of the walks now in 2007. So we created walkways on the farm with styles right down to the lake then in 2007, and we discovered that the guests loved that. They loved the freedom. Originally we only allowed them on the site. They were on the cottage site of about towards an acre, so they couldn't actually wander, but we did that in 2007 and discovered it was a huge success. Then we decided, Joe's parents had both passed away. Now we lived in just on the farm. We built our bungalow as normal farm families do. The old farmhouse became available, and so after a couple of years we said, what do we do with that? So in 2013 we decided to develop it into a 2-bedroom B&B, because it was the usual farm size with 2 up, 2 down. So we decided we develop it, built on a kitchen, and put in, we did afternoon tea and baking classes, which we discovered were a huge success too. So they were very good. And we were using our skills. Like, I love to bake, I love to talk, I love to people. So they actually worked very well for us and still ongoing. Then in 2018, we decided we build a garden suite onto the side of the house in the exact same style as we progressed. So we did that in 2018, and it proved very, very, very to work very well from us. Then we started the mindfulness trails in 2020 when we were stuck with the COVID. We said, look, we'll put in more trails, spend our time doing that in the garden. So all during 2020, we were out in the fields making more trails. Then in 2021, we won the European Holiday Cottages of the Year. So that was lovely for us. We found that was a great recognition for all the work we've done. Now in 2023, this is where we are developing the wildlife pond with the trees, the extension of the farm trails, and of course the wildlife pond will be great. We planted loads of hardwood in areas that didn't have it or had it years ago, so we've developed that. So that's the way we've working it over the years, the development of it. So what we focus on really is the farm experience. The guests love the freedom to explore that we all take for granted being on a farm. It's just natural to us all. And we actually have the plus in that we have stunning views, which is a great catchment within an hour of Dublin City to the airport. So it is a huge catchment. So you have to look for your unique selling point. So the walks were brilliant on the farm. The animals are plus. We've donkeys and ponies and hens and goats and all of that sort of thing. Now we no longer keep the Angus cattle. You have to make a decision which will work best for you. So we sold the cattle probably in 2016, and we haven't looked back. Now the big slatted sheds are still there, but it's something you may need to make a decision on which is more viable. And we no longer have the Jacob sheep. We sold them in 2019. So you'll have to decide at some point which will win out. You know, will the farm be more profitable or the tourism? So it will be a thing to look at yourselves. Food works very well for us. The afternoon tea, the breakfast. Guests from the cottages can come into the farmers B&B for breakfast. That works very well for us and for them too. We focus on accommodation, but more so on the walks, really. The accommodation was the original drawing factor, but now the farm and the walks and the whole experience. And the Americans love the food aspect. They love to try our food, our own fresh eggs and our baking. They actually love that. And also the history to tell your story. Don't be afraid to tell the story of your farm and how you developed it. And they're always curious to know, what are you doing next? So at least we have the pond and things to show on our repeat guests, because that's a huge factor. You will find you get word of mouth and a lot of repeat guests to your farm. The farmhouse was a great drawing factor. This is just a quick look at it there. This is what the farmhouse is, your traditional 2 up, 2 down, and it's located beside the self-catering cottage. Now, the cottages are really working very, very well for us. We get all year-round visits for them. But the drawing factor for some is to come in and have their cake and their tea in the old farmhouse. We developed the stone walls and what we call the dairy, and left in the old crane and all the old features, which is a huge drawing factor for American guests. And they actually just love looking at and asking us about the old equipment. We have it on a shelf there up above on the bottom picture there of, the brand and all the different pieces, the butter churn and all that are on display. So they actually love that. So use what you have. Now, inspiration to diversify, sustainability of the farm enterprise for the future generations. As with many farm families, our children are not interested in farming. One is a food scientist and the other is a journalist. They're not interested in the actual farming of animals, but they are interested in the tourism. They speak different languages. They've been traveling. So we hope in the future they will return to the farm to develop it further when we've gone into retirement. So integration with farm enterprise, guests love the animals, as I mentioned, and the walking trails. Advantage of integration is greater income and resources that you already have in place. So a lot of you have lovely land, farms, so much. So it actually is a great thing to devote your time to tourism. Now, the challenges that you may face along the way is planning permission. It was a big thing for us. So we spent the last 20 years in and out of the planning departments, in and out of Bord Pleanála there. And so it is a thing. With self-catering now, you have to have, we don't know how to work out with the rent pressure zones, but we actually have commercial planning permission that we acquired 20 years ago. So it is a tricky one to develop, so you must look into that with your local councils and that, to just check it out. Financial approval can be tricky because you've got to prove that you'll be able to repay the loans that you borrow. So that is a tricky one. The cost now at the moment, the electricity and the VAT, for us, we're VAT registered and it's gone up to 13 from 9. So it's a huge factor to consider. The volume of maintenance and costs can be quite high, so that's another thing to think about. We do a lot of maintenance ourselves. We're all the time in the buildings, outside, painting. We're all the time washing and gardening and doing a lot ourselves, but it is quite high. Constant upgrading to customer demands. We're always upgrading, developing inside, outside. So it's something that you have to like to do. Privacy issues on a farm, for farmers' work, the ability to change. It can be tricky for a farmer because suddenly you have guests asking you questions. What's wrong with that animal? He's a sore foot and so on. So just be prepared for those questions. And that a couple of days' time the sheep will be fine, or what's wrong, but you have to answer those questions. So be prepared for people being inquisitive and maybe other farmers coming to visit and watching what you're doing. So just be aware of that issue. Be prepared to overlook it or to overcome it. Farm safety, again, fencing, making animals are secure, they can't get out, the big animals, the little animals not so much, but and access. We don't have large cattle anymore. We've ponies and donkeys and so on. So we don't have a bull, we don't have large animals. So access will be a thing to look out for. One current problem that we've had is staffing issues. Very, very difficult at the moment to get staff to help you. So be aware of that as well, so staffing issues. The farm walks are wonderful. That we offer, so that's wonderful. Just to recap there, so we have a lot going on, so you won't get develop it overnight. It will take time, whereas there's 22 years developing it, so it will take time to develop, but it's very, very worthwhile. There's just a picture of the certificate that we won there in 2021, the European Family Friendly Holiday, so we were delighted with that, a little bit of recognition there. And we appeared then in the Irish Times then later in that year, probably into 2022, so we got a great feature there which worked very well for us, telling all about the tractors and the donkeys, and there's my husband Joe in the picture there with the hens. So it was a great way to showcase our business in the farming section, so you will get a bit of publicity there. So, and how resources and support, we got great support from Fáilte Ireland. We would have done research into everything with looking through Teagasc. We've part of Tourism Ireland for marketing abroad. Wicklow Tourism, get involved with your local tourist office. We're involved heavily with the Self-Catering Federation. I've always been a member of that. That's very worthwhile to join. B&B Ireland, I'm a member of that. And research your competitors as well. Look around you, see what prices they're charging and so on. Very, very useful. And marketing as well. It's all being about passionate about your product. You have to be passionate to sell. So be aware of being passionate about your product to sell it abroad. And even with guests staying, be passionate and they will sell it for you. So that's how I do it. I'm really passionate about what I do. My husband is as well. We chat to our guests constantly, and we get loads of repeat guests. They're so used to coming back to us. Use your skills, like your outdoor skills, your gardening. We use our cooking skills. My husband loves the outdoor, being the farmer background, and he loves being out in the garden and doing the hedges and chatting to guests, and he also loves cooking as well. So use your skills that you have. You have to be a people person as well. You have to enjoy having visitors to your farm. Make sure you set up a dedicated website of your own. It's very, very good for selling. Online booking systems like Channel Manager is very important now, so that you can send your product out to the open market. Be on Facebook, Instagram, and booking sites such as Booking.com, Airbnb, and Expedia work very well for you too. So they're where we would do our marketing, really. So that's me trying to fit everything in a short space of time there. So I'd like to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to present. And if you have any questions, I'm free to answer them for you as well. Okay.
That's great, Niamh. Thanks a million for that. That's a fantastic presentation, a fantastic overview. Kind of covers an awful lot of the questions in this area as well that people would have. You certainly outlined a lot of the challenges. Tomás, if you want to start sharing your screen, you're welcome to do so. And as I mentioned at the outset there, any of you that have questions, they're already coming in there. You can put your questions into the Q&A and we'll put them to the two panelists at the end. So just while Tomás is sharing his screen there, Niamh, I just want to ask you there about the farm walk and the farm trails that you're offering there. Was that kind of inspired through COVID? Was that kind of the catalyst for it? And who's the target audience for that, and how do you market that? How do you charge for it, all of that? Is it just for your own guests, or can people wander in for a day and do a nature trail or a farm walk?
Yeah, we had started to develop it now in 2007, but during COVID and all, we said, look, this has really been a great selling factor for the business. Let's go and spend our time at it. We walked the land with lots of time. We planned it, and we looked at the national wildlife, area of. There's a grant for that to develop it. I think there's about 300 farms in the country or so participating. So we looked at that because originally Joe's grandfather had put in loads of hardwood. So we decided we replace it on a lot of the farms. So that was a factor. The other thing was that we used it as a marketing thing. Now, we don't charge for it at the moment. We don't charge at all. It's part of the package when they come to stay with us for our guests. Okay. Now, we are working on, and we continue to work on it, a package where they can come walk on the farm to sell it with an afternoon tea. So we will look at selling it this year along as a package to offer two things to sell it. Now, it doesn't have a repay value as such. It's just purely for increasing sales. Now, we will get a grant for it. It'll be played back over the next number of years. It's just like all grants, they're delayed. They were supposed to pay out a big chunk of it when you did the work, but they have delayed it. So like with all grants, you have to be prepared when you take on any of these grants. They do take a long time to get the money from them. Luckily enough, we're okay, but it did cost a lot of money to do it. But it will pay us back with guests, because a lot of the guests say, if you read your reviews on, say, Booking.com, you'll see every one of them mentions the farm trail. So that's where people see you. That's where they want to book with you. And they say, oh gosh, we'd love to do that. And that's how you'll get them to come. So it has a big rate repay value in guests. We're running at a very high occupancy rate last year. I think we were up to 90% in the cottages, which was huge now. Like this year, I don't know how it'll pan out. Every year is different. This year is a bit quieter, but we hope it'll pan out. The last 2 years have been very good. So the B&B did fantastic last year. We actually closed at the end of October. We were exhausted because we had very little staff. So, that was really a factor in it. But the walks are working very well. Yeah, they're working well.
That's great. Thanks for that, Niamh. We'll come back to you after a while with more questions, because there's lots of questions, and you do have a great unique selling point there, being in proximity to Dublin. It's a key point for anyone establishing a business in this area. What is your unique selling point, as you rightly outlined there? So Tomás brings experience from Suir Valley Cottage. Tomás is a dairy farmer from Newcastle, just outside Clonmel in County Tipperary. He's seamlessly combined the charm of a traditional Irish hospitality with the beauty of Suir Valley landscape. His commitment to sustainable practices and community engagement has set Suir Valley Cottage apart as a beacon of responsible tourism. So Tomás, we'll allow you to give a few slides there, a few pictures of your cottage there, and just to say a few words about it, and then we'll go to the questions afterwards. Thanks, Tomás.
Yeah, thanks very much, Barry, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. So as Barry said, I'm Tomás O'Keeffe, and together with my wife, Myra, we farm 80 cows on small dairy farm in South Tipperary. And I suppose, like a lot of dairy farmers post 2015, I was looking out over the ditch to see how big I could make my farm. But I suppose in the last number of years, once I realized that we weren't going to get a whole lot bigger than we were, I started to look inside my own boundaries to see what I could do. And I decided that agritourism would be a way forward. So the title of the webinar is the homestead, and this is very much the homestead. I'm just trying to move on to the next slide there, Barry, and it won't move for me. Hold on. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So this is very much the homestead. It was where generations of my family was reared. And we came into the farm about 100 years ago, and so this is the house that I was reared in, and my father before me, as the fellow said. So there's the house today, as we are. We just run one property at the moment, and so the house became vacant in 2018, and it was idle for a couple of years. And like any property that's idle, especially one with the fabric of this one, they become run down very quickly. We renovated over 21 and 22, and we opened for business in June 22. So like Niamh, we're very, very new to this, but we're feeling our way into it. So there are just a few slides of the internal of the inside of the cottage, and the way we developed it. And so why did we go for holiday accommodation versus long-term rental? We knew from studies done there was a lack of short-term rental in the local area. The house itself is a protected structure, and its position in the farmyard is smack bang in the middle of the farmyard. I mean, it's very important to emphasize that, you know, when I'm milking the cows, if you're in the house, you can hear the milking machine. If you look out the back window, you know, you're looking out at my sheds. It's that central in the farm. And the fact there was a protected structure as well, it didn't lend itself to long-term rental, and the short-term tourist accommodation was something that attracted me as an option for the house. So where we started, the first person I called was the insurance man, because there's no point in building a business around accommodation if you can't get insurance, especially when you're dealing with an old structure like I have. And I got the insurance people to call, look at the house, tell them what I was going to do, and I basically wrote out a list of things that they were looking for so that I would be able to get insurance for what I wanted to do down the road once I had the project finished. The second thing, I suppose, and in line with that, was farm safety considerations. Like, you know, stand in the middle of the yard and pretend you're a 3-year-old and look at all the places you can go and make sure that you can't go there. And so you need, and especially on a busy working dairy farm, like you need to have it secure so that kids are safe and that your guests can't. I know Niamh is in very much into the freedom to explore, but it's not something we can do on our farm per se, because of proximity of the house to the farmyard. I know that the next two are a little bit maybe out there, but if you're dealing with an old farm building that doesn't have, it's not built with modern materials, like I was dealing with clay walls, stone walls, you know, thatched roofs, even like if you just have a building that's got stone walls, conservation professional is a must in my view, whether you have a protected structure or not. And it sounds very off-putting, but literally all I did was I got my hands on a conservation professional, and he was talking about how to deal with the fabric in my building, and I paid him to come to me for a couple of hours, and I literally recorded him on my phone, and I brought him around the whole house, and we looked at the entire house, and I asked him loads of questions. I recorded him on my phone, and I paid for his time. And that knowledge will save you an awful lot of headaches down the road. I did some courses with regards to working with lime and and how to treat clay walls. I did all that myself, but an opening into conservation of these buildings will save you a lot of headaches down the road with dampness, etc., because the last thing you need to do is get the local builder in to dry line all the walls, in my view, because you're asking for trouble. Interior designer, I know it's a little bit out there as well, maybe for people, but in my view, like, I had to get a wow factor. I had to get, when somebody walked into the house, there had to be a wow factor. And, you know, I milk cows for a living. An interior designer for, you know, a relatively small fee will give you that. And I think it was a great investment. Then only after I had all those things done, did I look at trades, and I booked all my trades, booked them well in advance. They're all very busy, but that's where we started along the road. Our experience today has been very positive. It gives an extra dimension to farming. I like meeting the people. It kind of changes the way that I look at farming. And like Niamh there, you know, giving people tours of the farm is very, very popular. Again, it comes back in the comments. People talk about how it was the highlight of their trip to Ireland. I mean, on a summer's evening, I'll bring families or guests around the farm. It can take up to 2 hours. They love to talk to a farmer. They love to walk the farm with me. They love to let their children run around the fields. But for insurance purposes, they can only do that at the moment while I'm with them. And that's the arrangement I have with my insurance company. I suppose it comes back to the fact that, like, we're on a working dairy farm, and they're right beside it. And like, my farm isn't quite set up in the same way that Niamh's is for with walks, etc. But like, people do love it, and there is a hunger there for people to, I suppose, connect with where their food comes from and talk to somebody like me. And so that's a good experience, I suppose, both ways, and it enhances the whole farming experience for me. It provides a complementary income. At the moment, that's what it's doing for me. It's you know, I'm not at a stage where I can drop the cows and go full time at this. But it does definitely provide a nice complementary income. And I also have to take into account the asset value of the house, because, like, if I didn't do this, you know, a lot of houses that were in the middle of farmyards ended up being used for storing tools and bags of nuts, etc. And you can go that way if you want to, but like, you're by enhancing the house, like, it definitely enhances my net worth in that I have another asset that I wouldn't otherwise have had. Challenges, I suppose, as a man who's dealing with cows for 30 years, dealing with the public is completely different. But it's something I've found I have a personality for, and something I enjoy, but it's a learning curve, that's for sure. Ongoing management of an old building. You know, you're never finished with a house that was built around, you know, 1780, somewhere between 1780 and 1820. So, like, you're constantly, there's something to be fixed, and maintenance is a constant thing. And, you know, as a busy dairy farmer, it's more work in an already busy day. But, you know, guests have to come first, and when there's people coming, the house has to be ready, house has to be clean, and you work around the house on the days when there's people coming. You know, when there's people in the house, happy days, everything is fine. But on the days when there's people coming, you know, that has to take priority. Cost wise, I find that my running costs are about 40% of my turnover, and these figures don't include our own labor. This is just, we'll say, the cost of running the house, and you can see them there. Insurance is quite big because of attached structure. You know, you could probably reduce that by 60% if we didn't have a attached structure. But you can see there, like, you know, heating is quite big. Laundry is quite a big one, and even little things like broadband and bins, all these things add up. So it's about 40% of the total turnover is cost. I find there's three parts in running a tourist accommodation let, and it's the best way we find to manage it, as well as, you know, Moira's a teacher and I'm a dairy farmer. So the best way to manage it and still manage to do our jobs is to compartmentalize the business and how we deal with it. So like the first, you can divide it into three parts: dealing with bookings and guests. So like I take all the bookings on my phone. I will interact with the guests online and deal with any issues they have, and they're looking for early check-ins or whatever. And then I'll meet them when they come, and I will welcome them, and I'll deal with any issues they have while they're there. And so I'm the person that they meet and gives them farm tours. I'm their go-to person, if you like, from the start. So yeah, they have that continuity that they're dealing with me. Some of them will meet Moira, some of them won't. Maintenance and upkeep, that's on me as well. So I can look after that in between my farming operations. Housekeeping is the one that takes up the most time. So between Moira and my sister, so Moira's job sharing and my sister works a couple of days a week. So they take care of that side of it. And that's the way we're working at the moment. And that makes sure then that everything gets done and everybody knows what they're doing, and it all works at the moment. So there's just a picture of the local area. There's my cows out on looking out over the Comer Mountains. That was morning before last. So there's some more views from around the house. And lastly, this is a second project. So I've started on this one. And I hope to get this one up and running and run two properties going forward. So there we are. That's very much.
That's great, Tomás. Thanks a million for that. And you can stop sharing your screen there now, or I can actually do it here on this side.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
There we go. Folks, thanks very much for that. Two fantastic presentations. So I see your questions are coming in there as well. Just one or two questions that I want to put to you as well, and you've answered an awful lot of the questions in your slides there as well about the challenges. You mentioned, Niamh, about the whole unique selling point. I think it's a very important terminology in all of this. Is what is your unique selling point? Who are you targeting? Are you targeting people who want trail walks? Are you targeting people who are interested in nature? Are you targeting the elderly? Are you targeting young couples? And you really have to go after a target market as well and have that unique selling point for whatever target market that you're going for. Would you just comment on that, Tomás, your unique selling point? Now, you did say a lot of it in your talk there, but just to recap on it, and, you know, you have the mountains beside you, the Comer Mountains, you're living on a dairy farm. How would you describe, in a nutshell, your unique selling points about your property?
Well, the first thing is that it's thatched, and that is definitely a unique selling point that does bring people. But at the same time, it'd be a surprising amount of people who come and didn't realize it was thatched until they actually arrived. We are in the middle of three mountain ranges. So we have the Comeras, the Knockmill Downs, and the Galties, and we're right in the middle of all three. So it's a good area for hill walking, and it makes the area quite scenic. I think one of the biggest reasons I get guests, apart from, you know, the fact that we're on a farm and that, is that we're very central. So you're an hour from Cork, Limerick, Kilkenny. You're 2 hours from Dublin. You're an hour from Waterford. You know, people can come here and they can easily spend a week and fill it and do loads of things within an hour's drive of me. And it's one of the things I'd recommend people to do, I suppose, if they're thinking about doing what I've done, and that is put the kids in the car on a Saturday and pretend you're a tourist and go and do things that other people will do when they stay in your property, because you will find that there is loads of things to do, and you will need to have that experience to talk to your guests and tell them what they can do when they're in your area. But I think my location is also is quite good.
And do you connect with other service providers in your area, maybe hotels that might be overbooked or other B&Bs do you work with each other, or do you have networks like that where you can lean on each other and say, I'm booked, maybe you can go here this week? Does those kind of networks exist? Or linking up with other service providers like say local forest walks, where you can get discounts for your guests to enter or get entry into a local museum or something like that?
I would work with a couple of other short-term rental property owners who would have a single property like myself in the area, and I suppose from a point of view of conversing and sharing our experiences, but also, you know, if somebody needs a place for somebody or whatever, and we'll share business that way. Also, I would work, say, with local businesses. So there's a guy who runs a fishing business in the River Suir. I take some of his guests from time to time. You know, so you try to, like, I'm not in it an awful long time. I suppose we're only starting to get into this now, but you try and make connections with people who are in the tourist business and get your name out there.
Niamh, would you
also, hard to say, sorry, also would have to say that we have Knockmeal Down Active in the area, which is a group started by Kevin O'Donnell years ago, and they run a lot of events in the area, and they do canoeing and that over in Cloheen. So, like, you know, working with people like that and groups like that will bring you business as well.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, absolutely. Niamh, would you just comment on that as well? Maybe the importance of connections with local businesses and that working together in collaboration, essentially.
We work quite a lot with locals, and remember, I'm on the Alliance of Wicklow Tourism myself, so I was at a meeting there last week and I met loads of local people. Like, there's guys setting up activities where they do the fittest family. They look at I was chatting to them, I never knew that was where the farm was, so they were chatting to me about accommodation for their 30 contestants that they're bringing groups in, and there's nothing over on the east coast with the rent pressure zone over in Bray, Greystones area. So I'm going to start working with them now since last week too, because we can accommodate 24 in the cottages and 6 in the farmhouse. So we were chatting about that because they have a group of 20 coming. So, like, you do meet people if you go to all those events, go to your tourism events, link up with, say, Fáilte Ireland. I often am chatting to them. I've gone on a few trips with them where I go to chat up the north on our products and what we do to groups up there. So you get involved with all of those different groups and you get to know people, like the local pony trekking person, or you'll get to meet like the cafe people who own the cafe, or the local descent people there. So you kind of have to get a great wide knowledge of people. You'll get asked different things. Where can I go to do this? There was a German gentleman wanted to know where could he go to buy hand knitted Irish sweaters, and I was sending him to different places to buy them, and he got exactly what he wanted. So you have to research yourself as you get asked those questions, so the next person that comes along, you have the knowledge. So you have to kind of keep researching and learning yourself. It's a constant learning curve for you. You know, we're in the 20-something years, and every year you learn a whole load of different things. So you'll find out the unusual requests, and we're going down to Blarney today because we're going to look at the Blarney stone, and you'll have to, you know, where can I go along the way? And they're coming back in the evening, so they don't see distance. They will go down to the Midlands, they'll go all over Ireland, and they'll still come back to you in the evening. They're amazing. I get amazed by their stamina for travel. So you will get used to it, and it's very, very enjoyable, I have to say. I enjoy meeting them and chatting to where they want to go. But I do link up with the local Rusborough. I send several groups down to Rusborough in a bus, and they invite us down to the candlelit thing so we could meet more. So you will get involved in a lot of things. If you enjoy people, you really enjoy it. But you do have to get out there yourself too, you know. So
I'm sure you make lots of friends through it as well, and repeat.
You do, yeah. And everybody gets to know you because they say, "Where are you?" And I say, "Abhainn Ri." Oh, I know where you are. I know because we heard about you, and you get that a lot. You know, even if you're at some kind of an event, like I actually recently, I love people, but I never get the chance to meet the local ICA, and I said I'll join now. And the minute I went down, they all knew who I was. So it was just to kind of get to know local people as well, because sometimes you get very busy and you don't get to interact with your local people. So try and keep in contact with them as well, because when they have family coming, you often I get family coming from as far as Naas, Kildare, and at Christmas and Easter, you'll get all these families arrive back to visit their families. you know, so that's another selling point you have to look into, you know, for your area.
You mentioned a terminology there that's only coming into our vocabulary in the last couple of years, RPZ, the rent pressure zones.
Yes.
You might just explain that. We did have Maureen Miracle from the Irish Self-Catering Federation on this a number of weeks, about maybe 4 weeks ago, speaking about glamping and the whole requirement for planning and you know, all this registration and all of that. Does this concern you? That the fact that tourism is being caught up in the whole housing for all policy?
Yeah, it's very, very concerning for all of us because a huge amount in my area have just given up and rented full time. We had a vast numbers of individual owners all around the Blessington Lakes. Now we're in the rent pressure zone down as beyond Baltinglass, so we're heading down towards Carlow and all around Carlow. Every city and town in the country now is in a rent pressure zone, which basically means that they're trying to fight it now. There's lots of fights, like more in America. I'm friendly with her as well, and I've talked at the self-catering meetings as well. They're coming under severe pressure because they are trying to push out all of the self-catering owners to try and get them to accommodate full-time, you know, rentals. Well, we don't want to do that. There's a huge market there for holiday people wanting to come on holiday. So if you're within a certain distance of a rent pressure zone, you need to check it out, because then you come under this. Now we're fine. We have commercial planning permission. We got it 20 years ago after a long battle, but it is becoming a huge factor of concern, because even if you're in a farm, like all the farms around us now are in rent pressure zones, you know, so developing an individual house into a self-catering in our area, you will have to get planning unless they get a derogation to try and overcome that, and make sure you become a member of Fáilte Ireland and get your accreditation there, because that will help you in the fight to get it, you know. But it is a huge factor. I've been attending all the meetings, but I wouldn't be 100% up to date on what's happening at the moment, because it just goes over my head a little bit, because I have the planning, but I have the huge concerns from people. Now I know in Dublin City and the major cities that's okay, maybe they do, but it's not fair to take all the self-catering accommodation and just bundle because the government didn't make plans in advance for all the houses they needed. Is to try and take them away from people renting out their accommodation for tourism. We've planning permission now for the B&B as well. We got that in about 3 years ago now, so it's fine. But you do need to know, even if you need to look for retention or you need to look for that, it's very costly. Like the cost of commercial planning is quite costly. You know, it's like you could apply for regular house and the planning permission is only small, but the minute you get into the commercial area, it gets very expensive. It's by the size of the floor capacity and all of that. It's the pure size of it. But it is a huge worry, the rent pressure thing. And it's in even Clarny now and Kerry, you know, they're the worst hit area, because they've actually sent out inspectors into those areas to go after people before this all blew up. But if you join the Self-Catering Federation, they will give you every assistance and keep you up to date in what's happening with it. And, you know, they will give you every assistance possible. Now I'm a member of them all and I find they're excellent. So anyone contemplating should contact the Self-Catering Federation to see and to chat to them about it. They're really very up to date on it as to what's going on at the moment.
I just think it's important that you mentioned that terminology, or there's a rent pressure and that this is something that people do need to be aware of if they're going into businesses. There are regulatory requirements that may be required in the very near future, so just to be aware of that. Tomás, just talk to us a bit about maybe your pricing structure. How do you price your product? So you have the one self-catering at the moment. Did you look at what's been offered by competitors in the area and close by? How do you decide on your weekly rent, and do you have a minimum stay period? You know, because obviously you don't like to be probably making beds every night for people staying on a one-night basis. Is there a minimum stay there?
Yeah, I started off by pricing against what was in the area. So, you know, log on to your booking.com or Airbnb or whatever, and be a tourist in your own area and look at what's available and what your competition is and what they're charging, and charge something similar for a kickoff. And since I've got up and running and I have my reviews, and the farm tour side of it has become popular, and that's mentioned in the reviews, and people then when they book, they ask me straight away about they want to walk the farm with me, etc. So this year I've put up the price then accordingly in order to try and I suppose monetize that side of it. as opposed to just charging people directly for that experience, which I could do as well, but I decided to try and do it through the fees that I charge. So that's the way I structured the fees, with a 2-night minimum and a maximum of 3 weeks. Now, we never had 3 weeks. The maximum we had was 10 days. My average stay is kind of 3 nights, maybe 3 to 4 nights, somewhere there. Like last year, we did 42 turnovers, and your laundry cost is the same if it's for 2 nights or 4 nights or whatever it is. So you have to draw a line and say, well, what's going to be profitable for a return for my time and the costs incurred, because
the laundry costs are the same for 2 nights or 10 nights. So it's
exactly unless you want to get into washing sheets, and we don't have time for that, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and you just might comment on that. Laundry, is that something you outsource to an outside company? Okay.
Yeah, so we have 3 sets of laundry for the house, and we drop it. Every time we finish a turnover, it goes straight into the laundrette in Clonmel, and we collect another set, and that's the way it works.
Is that the same with yourself, Niamh? Do you outsource that kind of labor as well?
No, we actually don't. We actually built in 2018 when we built the garden suite. We knew that was a problem for us because we tried the outsourcing with the laundry, but the volume was so great. We decided to put on our own laundry. So we have our own laundry dedicated room at the back of the suite. So we built that on at the time. There's a couple of washing machines, a couple of dryers, and a couple of iron presses in there. And I get local ladies in to do it, and they just work away on them. So because it was huge, we turn over so many, 4 houses turned over in 3-4 nights, and then we had the B&B, and the B&B is tougher because that's, as you said, it's a 1 night, 2 night, 3 nights thing. It never goes beyond 3 nights, 4 nights. So it's quite a big turnover of all of that. So we built a purpose-built one, and it's worked very well, and we have lots of everything. So we did try the outsourcing, and lately I've heard from one of the ladies that has a glamping site over in Wicklow, that's from my contacts, that they will no longer do hers anymore because she needs, I think, 20, 30 loads every day out in towards Dublin. They just won't do it unless it's massive. So I'm delighted we did it, because there's no way they'd come out to us now, from the major laundry crowds, because the hotels have them all taken up, and with the shortage of labour, it would be a problem only for the laundry room. So I'm delighted we have it. Now it is quite tough now. It is a tough job, but the only thing is, once the rooms are made up and they're all sorted, you push it down the road the next day, day after. It's not a big deal, but it is a factor now, and we're delighted we did it.
And you did comment on the labour in your presentation, and obviously that's an extra bit of labour that you're taking on as well. Is that something that you could potentially outsource if labour became a pressure area for you in the future?
Yes.
And how much time what kind of labour is required? Because you're busy all year round, really, with your proximity to Dublin and an hour from the airport. How do you manage labour?
Labour has been, up until last year, it was fine, but we ran into huge problems last summer, July and August, because we were at full occupancy for everything there during July, August, September, and so on. So we lost one of our main housekeepers in July. She got another position. So I had 2 students in from college, so I had to whip in and train them. You find it ends up with a lot of hands-on yourself. It's an area you sometimes just have to keep going at and help out if things get very busy. But we've managed now to secure 3 staff already this year, so they're college students, and they're going to go again. So labour is a huge problem, particularly as you get near the cities now at the moment. So you will find it very, very challenging. Now, I work long hours, and so does my husband. So I work 7 days a week a lot of the time, and it can be long hours. I could be waiting on somebody at 9 o'clock. So it can be a thing that you must think about. That wasn't something I would have done before I went into tourism. I would have had a 9 to 5. Now, farming is never 9 to 5. My husband was more used to that, but you do get used to the challenge of it. In the winter now, we're reopening the farmhouse now in the first week of March. We just close it for a while just to give us a break. It could operate, but it's just purely for a break for ourselves at the moment. It'll reopen, but you will find there's challenges now. The employee one is a huge one, because you don't know if the staff you hire now will be still with you in a few weeks' time. But I've discovered different ways. I was advertising locally, and now I've gone to using sites like Indeed and jobs.ie, and I've had huge success on them. I wasn't getting much success putting them on Facebook, going out in the local area. I actually got more success in putting them on other sites. So that's a bit of a tip for anyone that's in trouble with staff. Yeah.
Okay, and just in terms of your marketing, you might just recap on that. How do you actually market your business? Do you use bookings.com? You mentioned the channels and the importance of
Yes.
of utilizing the different channels. Like, is there different channels to get to the American market versus the European market?
Yeah, now Booking.com will cover quite a lot of them. It will cover European, American, Irish, all over. Booking.com will be our main successful one now. We run at 9.6 on that for the B&B and 9.45 for the cottage. So you have to keep your standards up very high, kind of focus on that. We've, get a huge amount of bookings from both of them. So you have to make sure they're updated. You could run into problems if you overbook or something. We don't do that because we use a channel manager to filter in our availability and so on. So
okay.
yeah, you would have to do that when you have a lot going on because 4 houses changing back
You
to
could get a double booking very quickly there, and then
very easily. Yeah, we don't do it with the channel manager because everything is in the one place and it just sends out your availability. We use Expedia for the American market. For the works better for the B&B now, wouldn't work as well for the self-catering. Airbnb is sometimes good now. In the last year or so it's got a bit quieter. We used to get a lot from there, but Booking.com has been our main source, and our own website. Believe it, it's if you focus on your own website to try and market direct to the customer, maybe at a slightly lower price, and that they're booking direct with you. All our older customers would constantly book direct with us again because we would give them a better price there. So it's a constant one.
How do you install that channel manager? I mean, how do you have to get some IT expertise to do that, or is it a piece of software?
Yeah, no, I've joined a company up in Donegal. Actually, I had outsourced it to companies in the UK, and we've been using companies in the UK and abroad. But I've gone with Guest Diary up in Donegal, and just did it there before Christmas, and they've proved very, very good. Now, I was used to the market, I've used to the channels, I've used to all that. Now it's always an educational tour that you go on. Now I'm still working with them; they're brand new to me, but you need a certain place that you have your diary, and then you need that you fill in that diary. You have the one place. It sends out all your availability to whether it's Expedia or Booking.com or Airbnb, and then you won't get those double bookings. You won't get the hassle. It doesn't matter if you have one property, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It doesn't matter. They will accommodate it. So I wanted to work with an Irish company because I found in working with UK companies, sometimes you try and get, if you run into problems with, you can't do something, there could take 2 to 3 days to come back to you. Whereas if you deal with an Irish company, they'll come back to you fairly quickly. So I've changed my sourcing of my jobs or whatever I'm going to fill, whether it be the linen and the bed linen and all, it's all done in Ireland now. I had companies in the UK, so now I deal completely with Irish suppliers for everything. I try to keep everything in Ireland.
Brilliant. Question there, Tomás. Have you explored any eco-friendly or sustainable practice in your self-catering business? And maybe I'll put that to Niamh afterwards. I know you have, you've talked around it, but maybe have you looked at stuff like maybe solar PV or energy efficient technologies in the cottage, or what's the plans? And I know you're developing a new cottage. Is that part of your plans there?
Yeah, well, I've applied for solar PV, and I'm waiting for that to be approved by TAMS and installed. I suppose that's actually going on the farm, but I suppose it's all one package really. I also kind of look at what I'm doing as being sustainable in itself. I mean, when you renovate a house that's been there for 250 years or however long it's there, and you use the original material that was built from, that practice in itself is much more sustainable than building a spine new house, in my view. And I think people who choose to come to me would some of them would appreciate the sustainability of that in itself.
Yeah.
But definitely sustainability is something that's gonna become much more of a factor, and certification for sustainability going forward is going to become more of a factor.
And how do you heat the cottage at the moment, and how do you charge for that?
I heat the cottage at the moment with oil and solid fuel, and I don't charge for the oil. That's part of the package, and solid fuel wise, we provide a small amount of solid fuel for people to start, and then they go and they buy their own after that. And all the timber that we use, we have our own forest on the farm. So all the timber that we use for the solid fuel is coming from there.
How do you deal with a situation, Tomás, if somebody left the oil on all day? And it could be they just forgot to do it, but how would you manage that? Because obviously there's going to be higher costs in the winter versus the summertime of the year. So
yeah, well, first of all, we close for the winter. You know, part of the whole time management is like, you know, I don't have time to deal with tourism at the moment because I'm calving a herd of cows.
Yeah.
So we close from December to the 1st of March, and so that's not an issue at that time of the year. For the rest of the year, I set the heating to come on a timer, and I show the people how to get an extra hour of heating if they need it. And I have yet to come across somebody who left the heating on all day and all night, you know.
Okay. And Niamh, just on that, on the area of managing energy, it was probably more of an issue maybe in the last 12 months over the last 2 years, probably when energy prices went through the roof there. How do you manage your energy costs, and how do you use any sustainable methods of heating?
Yeah, well, we actually replaced all the light bulbs and all of that. We did all of that type of thing, you know, to the energy efficient light bulbs. You know, we do actually have in the cottages the storage heaters. Now, I know people might think they're expensive, but they're not, actually work out fairly okay. You know, we haven't changed them. They're still working okay. Now, electricity prices are very expensive, so that is something we've have to factor into the cost. All right. We do give them welcome baskets. They have a log burner in each house, so we do give them baskets of sticks. And we're also like you, we've lots of fallen trees and so on. So all of the timber is from the farm as well. So that will be sustainable. For our water now, we have our own well. We have a filtered well with an ultraviolet light. So we use our own water as well. The farmhouse, like what you said, we use a lot of products then. We use the Bangor tiles. It has underfloor heating in the farmhouse, but it is oil heating. Now, we did a massive amount of insulation on the farmhouse. You know, my husband researched it, and we did work with some of the experts as well. So it's really efficient, uses very, very little electricity, and that. So we would actually look at sustainability. We're going to do, there's a greening program now. My husband is going to work with them. The Enterprise Road in Wicklow is running a new green program. It starts in the next 2 weeks or so. I learned that last week when I was at the meeting. That's why you need to go to all these meetings. So my husband's going to participate in that, and it's further greening your business to more energy efficient. Now, we have put in the pond on the farm, and we're replanting all the hardwoods. Like, there is a sustainability about the farm all the time. We're constantly doing things. So the farm itself now is sustainable into the future for those gens. So we look at sustainability probably in different ways to other people, but being sustainable is making sure for the future generations that they will be able to run it as a viable business rather than a farming enterprise. So, you know, we've looked at, now we do have the ponies and the horses, and, you know, we have all of those. They're registered, they breed. We have new animals coming on the farm, but not in the volumes that we used to, you know, just not in those volumes, you know. So as you get older as well, you have to plan it.
We've only about 2 minutes left, folks, and it's been great information there. But just a few quick questions that I want to finish up on that have been asked there. Do you ever have any issues with people? Just quick answers, please. Do you ever have any issues with people walking onto parts of the farm that they aren't allowed access to? So just quickly, Tomás, please.
Rarely, once or twice. Rarely, really, it's not an issue.
Yeah,
I have gates that I lock, so unless people actually come out the house entrance and in the farm entrance, it doesn't happen.
Okay, Niamh?
Yeah, rarely now. My husband has the farmyard and all is fenced off now, and there's the FBD signs on it not to enter. This is no entry zone, the slatted sheds and all that, and everything is no entry. They can only enter the greenfield fields. There's no sewer, there's no pond. No, the pond is there, all right, but that's way down towards the lake. It's not close to the cottages at all, so you have to be aware of that. Yeah.
A question for you, Niamh. What size is your farm? You mentioned 100 acres, didn't you, at the outset there?
That's right. It is 42 hectares, approximately 100 acres. Yeah.
And you've gotten rid of the Angus cattle. You don't keep any Jacob sheep anymore. So what grazes the land now?
Grazes the land. We take in, we lease out the fields to bring down the meadows to a local sheep farmer. He's a young farmer in his 30s, so he grazes off all the meadows now. He's currently going to be lambing on them shortly. So we do have the sheep on them in the winter. They'll come off now in March or so, and then we'll regrow the meadows for the tours and cut them down. So we do graze it off. It is actually grazed off because it's quite a substantial amount of land. Yes, it's grazed off.
A quick one there for Tomás. How long are the farm walks? 30 minutes, for example, or more?
Oh, a minimum of an hour, sometimes 2 hours. It depends on the people I have, and you know, I'm a bit of a talker. If people are willing to listen to me talking about farming and they're full of questions, that's what I do. But I do a lot of summers, even though I have the cows milked. It's quite enjoyable.
Do you offer evening meals?
No.
No, we don't offer evening meals. No, we used to at one point, but we found that the evening meals were very time consuming. So we developed a suite instead. So it took up the evening meals are very time consuming. If you do evening meals, it can run from 7 in the morning till maybe 11 at night. So we give up the evening meals there. Now, just my husband just popped in there. We bought 5 Dexter cattle recently. So we're starting to reintroduce the rare breeds onto the farm. So I just forgot to mention that a little bit there. So yeah. Yes,
okay, folks, we're going to leave it at that. I have more questions for you, Niamh, because I know you mentioned you're doing the baking classes and you have a passion for that area as well. So that's something to be aware of that you offer as well. But you summed that all up nicely in your presentation earlier on. People have asked, are the presentations available? If both of you are agreeable, you can send me on your presentations. The webinar has been recorded and will be available online to you afterwards. So I want to extend our thanks to our wonderful guest, Niamh Byrne from Abhainn Ri and Tomás O'Keeffe from Suir Valley Cottage for sharing their valuable insights and experiences with us. Your stories have been very inspiring, and I'm sure that our audience have gained a lot of wealth and knowledge on farm diversification and the self-catering business in general. I'd also like to thank my attendees for joining us today and actively participating in the discussion with questions. Remember that today's session is being recorded and will be available online for anyone who missed it or wants to revisit maybe any of the insights shared. So be sure to spread the word with people that the recording is available. So looking ahead, I'm excited to announce that next week's webinar will delve into the opportunities of developing a campsite or motorhome on your farm. We'll explore the potential benefits, the challenges, and the practical considerations of adding this exciting venture on with your agricultural operations. So mark that date in your calendar, next Thursday, the 22nd, again between 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock. Once again, thanks for participating today, and wishing you continued success, Niamh and Tomás, with your farming entrepreneurial endeavours. And until the next time, stay safe and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Very much, Barry. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.